Hi guys. We finally got a little sunshine. It's still really cold, but I wanted to do a summary of the last season, and I kind of wanted to start from the beginning and just kind of tell my whole story of all the encounters and things, but I realized that it's going to be way too long, and I already did a summary up until last season, so go back and watch that. That'll be kind of like part 1, and this will be part 2, and I'll put a link in the description for part 1. And I'm in the Upper Peninsula, Michigan, and even though we're 29% of the landmass, we only have 3% of the population up here. And I know we're really underreported for Sasquatch sightings. By the way, if you experienced anything in the Upper Peninsula or know anybody who has, please send me an email. You can be anonymous. I just want to get the numbers more accurate. So, just a couple things I wanted to mention. First is, of course, I always consider natural explanations. I try to debunk things. If it's not immediately obvious, my cat's going to be meowing here. Some of it's immediately obvious because I have a definite pattern of sounds and behaviors here. But of course, I think about all these other things that it could be. I don't see Bigfoot in everything or hear Bigfoot in every audio that I get. By the way, you only get a teeny tiny portion of the audio that I record. I've done something like 2,500 hours. You don't hear hardly any of it. You don't hear the hours leading up to it, the hours after it. There's definite patterns going on here. It's so easy for someone to pick something out, pick it apart. Oh, this could be this and this could be that. You know, if the skeptics were right, they'd have this big long line of different animals and people just waiting their turn at my recorder every night. It's ridiculous. But anyway, and you don't see the exact what the terrain is like, how far any houses or anything like that are from these locations. I'll try to describe. I'm very analytical myself and detailed, and I might go into a little too much detail sometimes. But, skepticism is healthy to a point, but it gets ridiculous at another point. We've got multitudes of people coming forward with encounters and evidence that they found, and only a tiny fraction of the people will come forward because they get ridiculed and made fun of, and I don't care about that, but so just imagine how many go unreported. And I want to get more information from my area in the Upper Peninsula. And I got a lot of notes because there's just too many things to touch on. People always want the exciting, the big audio sounds, the chatter and whoops, and it's just not like that. That's rare. I did get some of that, but definitely not Sierra Sounds quality. I wish. They're usually too far from the recorder. But I want to jump ahead, though. And what was the point I was making? I forgot what I was saying. Oh, yeah. So I think the smaller sounds are just as important. You're getting the day-to-day. They hang out by my recorders for hours on end, all night. They might disappear for a little while, or you don't hear them anyway for a little while. They'll come back. But they'll be there for hours on end. So we're getting... I think that's important, too. And to me, it's all exciting because I know this is a Sasquatch that I'm interacting with. More than, quite a few of them anyway. And you have to take everything all together. I keep saying that, but it's kind of like you're putting a puzzle together, and you take out this piece, and it's blue, and you're like, well, that's the sky. That's the sky. No, it's the lake. No, it's the sky. It's blue. See? It's blue. And you put the puzzle together, and it's a billboard or a flower. You have to take it all together. You take all the evidence together. If you take a case to court, you put all the evidence together, and it paints a picture. So you got these 17-inch and 16-inch prints going through these places, the audio, the tree barriers, the tops of trees snapped off, the big branches ripped out. It's something going on here. So anyway, I'll just do a really brief overview up until this point. So in 2022, my sister Linda, she found a 16-inch print along her road. And even though I live in an area where there are a lot of these things, I've never personally heard anybody I know talk about them. They don't, because they don't want to be made fun of, but I've always been interested since I was a child. I've always watched all the documentaries. I've listened to the encounters and all that. But I never thought I'd experienced anything. So she found a 16-inch print. It was like it was walking along the road and then it stepped out. Maybe it looked behind and it stepped out once. And it's got the toes and everything. And then the next year, almost to the day, early spring, I was quite a ways from my home, and I was collecting railroad spikes, which I've walked many miles of railroad collecting spikes. I started selling them in my Etsy shop because people make blacksmithing projects. They make knife handles and stuff. And I bent down to pick up a railroad spike, and I did a double take. There were these two huge, obviously foot-shaped, deep indents in the railroad rock. I found them there. I found them farther down. A month later, I found them a mile away, all the same size. And again, I'm just going to do it real quick. There's too many things to go through all of it again. You can go back and listen to that. So I didn't record that first year. I kept thinking they probably just walked through. They're not really here, you know. So I think I mentioned tops of trees were snapped off and they were put in a barrier. Really skinny trees. I had trouble picturing a Sasquatch climbing these trees because they're so thin, but they're super tall. But they broke the branch tops off and they put them on this barrier, and later this barrier was really elaborated on. So I found in the mile away, I call it Site 2. Found tree barriers there too. There's a very hidden, overgrown path there. I didn't even know it was there. I'd been both these places several times. And looking back now, I actually wonder if he didn't do that on purpose and leave those prints, because I haven't found any other prints in these spots. I found some in another spot, but since then, it's like they purposely avoid the sandy areas, and I think they have a way of just not leaving prints if they don't want to. They're definitely aware. But anyway, I gotta speed up here. I found small hidden lakes in these places. Early on, I heard one walking very loudly, like 3 steps, very close, just in the tree line. And in the fall, I put out a trail camera and some apples. I already knew they avoided cameras, and I left it there for a week. And then I took it out. It was late fall. And I went back early the next spring, and he had gotten up in a big tree and ripped most of the branches out and put them in the path right where I had gone to put that camera in. I think he did that in the fall, that fall. And they're spread out, but they're in together there. Okay, so we're caught up to. No, actually, I got to go through 2024 still. So we're up to 2024. I'm thinking, so are they still in the area? Did he rip those branches out and leave the area? Or what's going on? So I started audio recording, and that's where my audio recording adventures started. And the kitty's sitting up in the tree right there. And so I left my first recorder. There was a hill there. It's just a small hill. Well, it's a pretty big hill. But anyway, I was like halfway up the hill. I left the recorder there. It's pretty loud because when you're handling it and it's in a bag so it doesn't get wet with the hole for the microphone, and I put leaves on it. It sounds really loud, and I'm adjusting it. I'm listening back to it later, and I'm like, wait a minute, I wasn't there that long. And then I hear myself whistling on the hill there. As soon as I put the recorder, adjusted it a little, and I turned, and I'm walking up the hill, like 15 seconds after I'm walking away, he's there at the recorder, handling that recorder. And I turned and I whistled before I leave sometimes. It's like, I'm here, I'm leaving now, which is totally unnecessary, they know. But that night I got my first vocal, too. It was really loud, like, yeah. And Jim Sherman sent me a clip. He got one hollering E-O, which is very similar, and I'd never heard of them making that sound. I've never actually heard a whoop. I did hear one kind of like a whoop, but I'll get to that. So then I kept recording, got my first vocals, and I found a patch of old twisted trees. There was this big sandy area. You could tell it was old, and it wasn't some tornado magically touched down and lifted back up. They're twisted in different directions. And I got orbs in a photo. I couldn't see them with my eyes. There was no flash to reflect off anything. One of them was a big white one. You could see light radiating or energy radiating from it. So, the skeptics, there's no, you can't explain that away. That was not dust or bugs. I've captured spirit voices there on my recorders, and I don't try to get that. It just happens sometimes. I don't interact with spirits. That's a no-no. I get many, many different kinds of whistles, including a couple steam whistles, which I've heard encounters where they make that sound. I'm filming, kitty kitty. Oh, no, don't do that. Come here. I'll have to edit this. Meow. I'm busy. You getting cold? I'm cold. Holy cow. Don't knock the camera over. Okay. Sorry, my cat was knocking the camera over. I got many whistles, different kinds of whistles, and it's obviously not birds. And sometimes he'll often do, I call it half-hearted. He's whistling, but then he'll be just blowing air like, and then you hear him whistling. And I've gotten so many different sounds, mouth, snap, pop sounds. Usually I get those when I'm still there, but I don't hear them. I listen back later. Tongue clacks, rock clacks, knocks, a small animal. I'll come back to that later. There's something with that. They always find a handle the recorder at least once. I'm busy, kitty. They press the buttons. They press the button. Cut. They always find the recorder. They'll handle it at least once. Every time they'll push buttons. They'll push a button, beep, and there'll be a long pause, beep, and this can go on for several minutes, and then they'll shut it off, or else they'll just shut it off. And I very, very often get this certain scratch sound. And yes, I know, animal scratch sounds. They scratch things. This is a particular sound I keep getting over and over, and they'll do it for hours on end sometimes. It varies a little, but it's still the same sound. And that's one of the ways that I know right away that there's one there right away, because I hear this sound again. And still in 2024, something came in. It comes in very loudly. It's different than Sasquatch. I think it's a dog man. It came in, it was breathing, sniffing, I should say, sniffing the recorder very loud. At one point, he picks it up and he's like putting it in his mouth or by his mouth. And I thought, I think that's a dog man. And there was a sighting there. And I got a lot more this last year. So I'll get into that. There's never any big teeth marks on anything, no claw marks. I got dice interaction where I'll have it in a certain pattern. And it's something intelligent, and they'll flip them put them in a certain pattern. And I found hair in September. It was blonde to reddish blonde, and I lost it right away. And I'm still kicking myself over that. It was a big glob. I didn't see any roots, so they wouldn't have been able to get DNA anyway. I was kind of watching an interview about that last night. They have to have not only the root, but like part of the skin on the end of it to get all of the male and female DNA. I've tried cameras in many ways. It doesn't matter if it has infrared or not. They know they're there. So, yeah. And one thing I think I forgot to mention in my summary last year was Site 2. I'm very spooked in that location. I was not going there hardly at all. And finally, late in the summer, I decided I'm going to try to leave a recorder. I was thinking, there's a lake and marshy area, but it's a long way back, and I wasn't going to walk back there by myself. No way. I did have someone go with me just to check it out. And so I thought, well, they'll probably be back there. They're not going to come out and check this recorder out by the road, right? So I I went just part way back. I found a place where the ground sloped down behind a stump, so I could hide it back there. It took 9 hours, and there was one there. Usually they're there right away. Right away I was getting that scratch sound and branches breaking a short distance away, so there was more than one. And of course, when I picked it up, I didn't know that yet. It didn't look like anything was moved. I'll leave some trinkets and stuff. And yeah, I'll leave an apple and crackers. And I don't leave hardly. People will be like, you shouldn't gift because they're going to get dependent on you. Come on, give me a break. It's not even a midnight snack for them. And they were already there. It's not like I'm luring them into the area. It's just to make sure, to try to get more sound right at the recorder. So anyway, so I picked that up. And I thought, well, it didn't look like anything happened. So I left it a second time. And when I picked that one up, even though it was a week later, there was one there right away. So I felt like they knew I was there. They knew I was going to come back. So I felt like they're probably hanging out there. And I didn't go back that year after that. So we finally caught up. We're up to 2025. I just have a few general quick comments, and then I'm going to go over each site individually. But I'll try to make this quick because I think it'll be less confusing that way. So in 25, I went back, and there were branches. I found two. I went to the original site, and there were no leaves on the trees yet, so I felt braver to walk back farther because it's wide open more. I found a tree that had all the branches on one side ripped off, bottom to top, all the way to the top, piled neatly right by the bottom of the tree. And I found a white pine tree that had a whole bunch of branches ripped out, and they were on the ground. When I went to site 2, there was a big white pine, they're like this big branches at the base, ripped out, just different random spots and piled up. And there was a big barricade right there too. I'm getting ahead of myself. So I found a lot of weird tree things. Got a little nice interaction this year. Here and a couple of other spots, but not quite as much as I did the year before. And I don't do that all the time. But I tried some different trinkets and things. I didn't get much interaction. I had a big red beach ball, really big beach ball, and it sat for the longest time. And finally, it was flat. It didn't go flat. It looked like a finger poked into it or something. It had this big crack in it. And as usual, I tried new locations every time. They'll handle the recorder, they'll shut the recorder, they'll push the button. Both of the different cryptids do that. A couple times I tried a body camera. I stuck it in the back of my mini backpack, but it's just, I don't have a gimbal to level. It was just too hard to try to see anything. So I tried leaving it. One time I left it on a stump, one time on the ground. And I'm reviewing it, and you couldn't see it until I fast forward. It was being moved very slightly, constantly, in every clip. This is really weird. They have a lot of patience. And other times I left it and didn't get anything on it. And strange insect sounds. I'll come back to that one too. Again, I get the whistles, the scratch sounds, the ratchet sound, or it's like a ratchet or a big dial being turned. I call it the ratchet sound. Snaps and pops, all that. And so we're up to the original site this year. This is wilderness. There's no houses nearby. There's nothing there. There's no campground. Wilderness, woods, middle of nowhere. And I already mentioned this. I went back and there were trees with the branches ripped out. And the funny thing is, when I was there walking around, I put the recorder first. So the road's here, the recorder's here, and I'm walking around back here, and he's at the recorder the whole time. He's probably watching me like, what's that idiot doing now? I'm walking around, looking around. I didn't go too far back, but he was there whistling, the ratchet sound. And later that summer, I got demonic sounds on my recorder. I'm not exaggerating. It's kind of like in Hollywood when they have that deep laughter, demonic. It was just like that. It really freaked me out. There are strange things going on in these places, and you can listen to that audio. I already shared all that. I'm getting cold. I just turned 60 last month. I finally decided to embrace the gray, so I got like gray up here and different color down here, but it's still cold today. I think it's in the 30s, which is actually a heat wave for the temperatures we've been having. So anyway, went off on a rabbit trail there. Sometimes I'll hear whistles on the recorder while I'm there, but I didn't hear them myself. So I tried to be even more attentive and listen. And there were a couple of times I was there that I heard him whistling. It wasn't a bird. You know, I'm not going to address the skeptics much in this one. If you don't believe something, no matter what I say, you're not going to believe it. This was not a bird. I heard him whistling one time. I'm messing with stuff, and I hear him right in front of me, and I look. And I purposely just stood there and stared in that direction for a few minutes. Not a few minutes, a little while. And then I went back to what I was doing, and I hear it over here now. 2 whistles, 2 short whistles again. And when I was leaving, I heard a louder whistle, and I turned and I went, I heard that. I should have hung out a little longer and listened some more. Maybe a little bit more distance away, though. Oh, I'm getting cold. Let's see here. One time I was leaving, and I had an extra quarter. I'm thinking, where am I going to leave this? There's a big tree right by the railroad tracks, and there's a big patch of cattails. So I left it, and it sounded like, the only thing I can think to describe was like a piece of luggage with those little wheels, and it was getting drug around. It's just rocks and little blueberry bushes and sticks. So that was really weird, and this went on for a really long time. I swear I could hear the little wheels moving sometimes. I have no idea. He has some piece of luggage someone discarded in the woods or something. I have no idea what's going on there. And this year, the one I really believe it's a dog man, and I know the name is really stupid, but there are strange things in this world. Just don't be so dismissive of these things. They're not strictly flesh and blood beings. There's a spiritual component to these. And I did a video of what I believe these things to be, so I'm not going to go over all that again. But I get the creepiest sounds from this one. This one doesn't care if you hear it coming through the woods. It crashes and breaks branches. I got it make really bizarre snorting kind of sound. Sneeze, I heard it sneezing. Even scratches like a dog, but it pushes the buttons. Dogs can't push. Wolves, coyotes, they don't pick up a recorder and push buttons. Spooky sounds. You haven't heard of hacking like a cat does when they have a fur ball? Hacking. And someone said that Bigfoot likes Mountain Dew. I personally like vanilla Coke, but I thought, what? I should try that. I left a Mountain Dew, and you can hear this dog man for 12 minutes drinking this Mountain Dew. No kidding. Believe it or not, if I get something, no matter how crazy it sounds, I'm going to share it with you. So you can make up your own mind. So again, it's always just crushed. There's no teeth marks, no claw marks. And I tried leaving a musical card again, greeting card, last year. No, the year before, I left one, and he had ripped around the mechanism, which is about this big. He ripped it out and threw it. This year I heard him, Dogman was there, and I heard it open and close. You could hear the music off and on for quite a while. And that happens at site too, also with the Mountain Dew. And let's see. Okay, near the end of the season, it kind of tapered off pretty early. I believe the main one I was interacting there might be here now. So it was tapering off kind of early. I quit there in September because I had other sites going on too. But I was there, and I was walking up by this hill, and this snow's getting packed down, so it's getting slippery. And I walked up by the sand hill, and just for the briefest moment, I saw something bigger than a squirrel. It was like it was like I surprised something, and it wasn't supposed to be seen. And it was like this fluid. It went over some bushes, and immediately Barb Schutz's video came to mind, where she caught this small being cloaked. And it just seemed like it had this shimmery, and I'm sorry I can't describe it better, but I don't think it was something natural. I wish I would have had the camera going. So that's all I can say about that one. So then there is a bigger lake back there, and like I said, I don't want to walk back there by myself, but I did see a 2-track back there. I couldn't drive back there because the road was too bad, so I still had to walk. But I felt a little safer because I was on an actual road. Crappy dirt road. It was a long walk, and they had logged back there, so there's a wide open area. It was really hard to walk through, kind of dangerous actually, because all the branches and stuff. And I left a recorder. About 2 minutes after I left, there was a Sasquatch there. I only did that one time. I had to go back to pick the recorder up. Now my other kitty's out here. Hey, baby. And but it was early spring, so the frogs were so loud it was hard to hear anything. And I was hoping to maybe get a whoop or something back there. So I didn't go back to that one again. And then when I went to Site 2 this last year, there was a big new barricade across the path back farther, and a smaller one a short distance after it. And that's the spot where there was these big branches ripped out of pine tree. It was just to the side of the barrier, and I don't know if he's planning on putting them in the barricade too, or I don't know whether to call it barricade or barrier. It's hard to get around because the terrain there is so thick. And when I first went there this last year, I'm thinking, well, I haven't been here in a long time, so I'm trying to rationalize to feel safer. They're probably back there. They're not going to know I'm here the first time. So I actually was pretty brave, or stupid, and I walked back quite a ways, and I found this big old stump, and I had to reach way up and put the recorder up there, and I put Pop-Tarts up there, which were never touched, and I got a lot of chatter that night. Sasquatch chatter, actual chatter. I was so excited and scared, and I listened back, but it wasn't right by the recorder, so a lot of it's hard to hear, and even the loud stuff that I can hear clearly, it seems like when I try to share it with somebody, they're like, oh, I don't hear anything. I even got what sounded kind of like words, like rush. And there was one that sounded kind of like enjou. But most of it was just these gruff sounds. Even there's this one where it sounded like a female and a male, and she was kind of like, Rrr, and he goes, Rrr. And there was one that sounded kind of like a whoop, whoop, kind of. I can't do it, but anyway. As I was leaving that first time, when I listened back to the recorder, there were a couple spots on the recorder. It was almost an electronic sound. There's nobody back there. There's no reason for anything like that to be back there, so I don't know what. And 100% nobody's back there. Nobody's been going. I have ways of knowing if somebody's been back there, and there was nobody all season back there. So got the chatter. I got one where it sounds like a man yelling, but then he makes these like loud sounds, you know. And there's no human words, no doors, car doors slamming. It's in the middle of nowhere, the middle of the night. I really believe it was a Sasquatch, and they can mimic people too. And one time I left and I went back, and immediately something looked off. He had bent a small maple tree over by the beginning of the path, and the leaves were still upside down, so they were all lighter color. So it stuck out like a sore thumb, and I went back to normal later, and you can't hardly see it, and I have to push past it when I go back there. I caught a few orbs in a photo. Finally caught him on trail camera, messing with my camera. You can see like the chest area, and he's got this long hair. There's no bear here that has hair that long. Raccoon. There's a stick in the image that's level to my face, but he's way up here somewhere. So if you haven't seen that video, you got to check that out. And And one time Sasquatch, he was definitely Sasquatch. He's at the recorder, he's making these scratch sounds, and then he starts making these irritated sounds. And I can't copy it, because I hear it, what I think was the dog man came in, and he's really irritated. It's really frustrating, because even like fellow Sasquatchers, I'll be excited about something, I'll share it, and they try to, it's like they want to dismiss it. Everything they do is 100% real, but I don't know. He's trying to tell me it's a blue jay or a raven, and I'm trying to tell him it's the middle of the night. It's the middle, well, maybe there's some fake light, false light, or I'm like, no. And I was polite, but I'm like, are you kidding me? Anyway. Okay, let's see, where did I leave off? My camera shut off. It does that every 20 minutes. And it's taking me a while to get this done because the cats kept trying to knock the camera over. So I was talking about the irritated sound he was making. I had to actually take the SD card in the house and figure out where did I leave off? Okay, so that same night I got that really weird irritated Sasquatch sound. I did that trick that Matt Moneymaker told me about, how you put a trail camera in a box, you make a fake bottom in the box, and you try to camouflage it. Well, something pulled it out, and I got like the eye and the ear, and I realized, I think it was the dog man, and I realized I was watching a Scott Carpenter video, and it had the same markings around its eye, it looked just the same. And he called it a flat-headed dog man. And that night I also got some strange sounds that I had never heard, and I have never heard since. It was like this loud, ee, wee. That sounds, probably sound like a weirdo. But I caught those sounds that night too. And also that night I captured what people call rods. They say, well, it's just a photo anomaly. It's just a bug moving so fast that it looks really big. No. There's a guy in Appalachia. He gets them at his house a lot. He'll videotape them going through things. There was a branch. They were flying over and under it. I found that branch, so I was able to get a pretty accurate measurement. This one was 16 inches long. I call them cryptid bugs. I've only captured them 3 times, and it was always when a cryptid was nearby. There's just weird, it's not just Sasquatch, there's weird things that happen in the same areas as these things. And, I've had times where the trail camera would actually be pulled out of the box, or I'd have it on a tree, and it would get nothing. And that in itself is really unusual, because you always get something. The wind will blow a branch, a bird will fly by something, and you get nothing, and you hear sometimes how the technology will go wonky around them. And when I was by the big barricade area, just on the other side, I saw this branch move. It was kind of like if a bird landed on it and then flew and it bounced. But I didn't see a bird. I didn't hear a bird. It could have been, but I don't think it was. I think it was him, because they can cloak. I know it sounds nuts. I used to think that's crazy. I've had too many experiences where they're right there. They're on the recorder, but I can't see them. Even the very first one, where 15 seconds later, he's right there and I can't see him. I turned and I'm looking down the hill. There's nothing there. So they can do that. They're not strictly flesh and blood animals. There's a spiritual component to these things. And I did the video where I talk about what I believe these things are, and you can go back and check that. And I've heard branches snapping while he's walking around there. A couple times when I was there, I got a vocal, it sounds like a man yelling really loud, like he's freaked out or something's going on, but then there'll be like this loud sound. But no human words, and no sounds of a car doors, or nothing, even though the road's a ways away. But I really believe this was the Sasquatch that can mimic people too. And he was messing with my trail camera a second time. And I just caught the long hair on the edge of the picture where his arm was moving, and you could see the hair, and you can see the camera moving. And I'm almost to the end of this part. I quit there in October because hunting season was coming, and I thought in a really slim chance somebody might come back here hunting, because I had seen really old evidence where someone had hunted back there at one time. So I thought, just in case, I'm going to take stuff out. And I'm standing there by this barricade, and this is the only time this ever happened. I could feel him standing right there. And it freaks me out. And I just steeled myself, and I grabbed my stuff, and quickly walked away. But I could feel that he was standing right there. I'm not a crazy person. I don't imagine things. So anyway, here's some new stuff that I love to explore, and I've often looked at satellite images looking for little lakes and stuff. This was pre-Sasquatch stuff, even though I've always been interested. I've never heard anybody in my area talk about them. So I decided to put some recorders at some of these lakes. And there's many, many, many lakes, so nobody's going to figure out which ones I'm talking about. These are over 40 miles from the original areas, the opposite direction. And I tried two of them. I'll just call them the larger lake and the smaller lake. And so I'm thinking, if they're here, I decided at both places I put a glow stick on a branch over the water, because I thought, well, after dark, no matter where they are, they're going to see this light and come check it out, right? Well, to my surprise, and very concerning, I put the recorder, I walked away. There was one at the recorder right away. I'd never recorded there. And so they're in these places watching us. And they can cloak, so you can't see them. If they don't want you to see them, you're not going to see them, and they can be right there. So, and this happened at both places. There was one at the recorder right away. And just like all the other places, they'll handle the recorder, they'll shut it off. One of my recorders went missing. I got some dice interaction. I'll get the same scratch sound, ratchet sound. I get all those same sounds. And I got some different sounds, some different vocal kind of sounds. So I didn't go there till July, the end of July. I found a 16-inch footprint by the larger lake. I could immediately see the heel print, and that was like 7 inches wide, but I couldn't make out the rest of it. So I took pictures, and I'm thinking, I'm wasting my time, because usually if you can't see it there very well, the picture's even worse. But when I got home, I'm looking at the pictures, I could actually make it out better. I could see the big toe, a little bit of another. So when I went back, I measured it 16 inches long, 7 inches wide, right by the edge of the lake there. And one time I was there, I was kind of walking around looking for the recorder that went missing. So I'm right there. I could even hear myself say something out loud. I try to act casual, and I don't watch, so there was nobody there. Nobody there. There's a big wide open area. Not many trees by the lake, so there's nobody hiding there. Sasquatch couldn't hide anywhere there. So when I'm listening back to the recording, he's right there. He probably could have reached out and touched me. He's right there at the recording. And I got a spirit voice there. Two things. I heard kind of like Katipa or something like that. And I said something out loud. I couldn't hear any of this while I was there. And then I heard on the recorder, Pinko. It was this woman's voice. So I'm getting these spirit voices. I got the spirit voice at the smaller lake. It was real brief. Couldn't tell what it was saying. And I quit. I was only there for a month. I quit that day for a month. And I did put a recorder closer to the road. 24 minutes later, one was at that recorder. I didn't go back for a month. And then I did go back in the fall, I think 4 times. It's really beautiful back there, too, in the fall. So I'm getting close to done here. There's just so much to talk about. I want to share it all. I love to share things. Whether it's a recipe or Sasquatch, I want to share everything. So, yeah, I said that. And by the smaller lake, there's another even smaller lake, but it's like right close to it. So I wasn't going to record there because obviously they're already there. So I tried just twice, two times. Left a recorder. 3 minutes after I leave, there's one there. And one night, one of those 2 nights, 4:30 in the morning, I hear sounds like a sheep. There's no sheep. There's nothing for miles, literally. I'm not exaggerating. It's just wilderness for miles, this particular lake. It sounds like a sheep in the middle of the woods. They can mimic anything, so I'm trying to think, where are they? They must have heard it at a ranch somewhere or something at some time. Who knows how many years these things live. And there's a small bridge I know of, and I don't care if anybody figures this out, because I don't plan on recording there anymore. I only did it once. It's like a 3/4 mile walk to get to it along the lake shore. I had to, guess what? There was one there. I had to walk through some brush and duck down under this pine tree, and I covered it, hid it under pine needles, those really long white pine needles, and I left an apple. The apple was never touched, not even, I saw a squirrel running around. Didn't touch the apple, nothing did, but there was one at the recorder. And that ratchet sound that I get, I wrote down ratchet on steroids. I got that sound really loud. And some of the other, I got some knocks there that night. I don't plan on recording there anymore, though. I got enough places to record, and I don't know. I still don't have anybody to go with me on a regular basis, and it's getting a little too up close and personal, so I don't know. I really want to. I got to figure something out. So lastly, and guess where they are? Right here. Not right now. It's winter, and I haven't seen or heard anything all winter. There's too much snow. And so Scott Carpenter said, if you try to find them, they're going to come to your house. You kind of give that open door. And I would, in the name of Jesus, you're not allowed to follow me home. But I wouldn't always remember to say that. And plus, I don't know the exact rules and all that. And I pray about this stuff a lot. But it just so happens the last 2 years, I've lived here about 23 years. The last 2 years, I like to walk around the woods here. And I kept, what are all these trees? There's so many trees back there broke down. Some of the places I walk a lot, it's hard to get through, and I didn't put 2 and 2 together. And the year before, I was the first of the 2 years where I've been recording. I was right here, beautiful, sunny, calm day, drinking a cappuccino, just relaxing with the cats, and there's big tree crashes back there. For a split second, I'm thinking, oh, did they follow me? But I'm like, no, I just brushed it away. No, even though it's calm, it just got weak and finally fell over. And then last year, my cat went missing, and she's fine, but totally unlike her all day. I was really I love my pets. I was really upset, and I thought, could it be? I pray for their safety and everything, but I put a recorder out here. There's one here. There's more than one. That night I got a lot of rock clacks at the recorder and in the distance talking to each other. The scratch. We shut the recorder off. And I'm almost done. Whistles. Even that first night I got the whistle. He handled it, shut it off. I get a lot of rock clacks. One day I heard clapping, kind of like when your hands you get that suction kind of clap sound. I heard that. I've never heard that any other time. Loud clapping. And there's nobody here. This lady, she died last year. There's nobody living there. There's an old trailer here, nobody there, and that's all my neighbors here, besides one across the road and way down. So there's nobody here doing that. So I got the clapping sound, and I heard some sniffing sound, and I've never heard Sasquatch do that. It's always been Dogman, so I'm like, I really hope there's none. I don't want that here. But they follow these things around and kind of light, a strange light, not light, like an orb kind of. It is a little different looking. I don't know how to describe it. You can see on my channel. I got a little dice interaction, not much. I put out the musical card. I heard it open once and then shut again. Same kind of sound. I got more than once, I got very strange shadows in my photographs that you cannot explain away. There was no light source for that to be there. And I talked about this in another post. It would take too long to describe it again. But there's no explanation for those. And then once I realized they're back here, he's throwing stuff on my roof trying to get my attention. One day I heard that sound, and I still brushed it off. I knew there was nothing that would have made that sound, but I still brushed it off. I'm not going there. And then, I don't know if it was a couple weeks later or so, I heard it 3 times in a row. It was dark out. I just opened my door and slipped a recorder out there, and he was right at the door making sounds at the recorder. I got the rods back, the cryptid bugs back here. And let's see, I think that's about it. Oh, one time I put there's a big tree back there on a mound of dirt, and I put stuff back there. And I went back 30 minutes later. I think I was trying to debunk or trying to recreate those shadows, which I can't do with the camera. And then something was walking in the woods behind me. And when I listened back, he had been at the recorder. I went out. He went back. He was back in the woods further. And then he came back to the recorder when I came back in the house. Pretty freaky. I still don't feel in danger here, though, at my house. And Scott Carpenter, last night I was listening to one of his interviews, and he said they bring other things with them. Yes, they do. And that small animal I mentioned, every location that I've recorded, except a couple where I only did like one day, I hear some kind of small animal is with it. Sasquatch. He's either carrying it or it's hanging on to him. And I know that sounds nuts, but it's the exact same small animal, the same sounds, the same different locations, over 40 miles apart. In that one, the Scott Carpenter, the flat-headed dog man that he calls it, he got an image of something, some kind of small creature. He called it a small animal. And I'm like, whoa, it kind of freaked me out a little because I get the same thing, only I think it's a different one, and it's associated with the Sasquatch. So I'm like, what is going on? There's weird things going on. Some kind of small animals hanging out with Sasquatch. I don't always get that sound. And I think that's about it. So I was just wrapping up and the camera shut off again. I guess it does that so it won't overheat, but it's freaking cold out here. It's a little frustrating. And it's only mid-April here, so I have no disillusionment that spring is actually here. We'll probably get more snow, and oftentimes we can have snow into May sometimes, so it'll be interesting to see what happens this year. And I'm still praying about what I should do and what I should not do, and I need to find a partner to help go do these things, and willing to go the distances that I go and all that. So we'll see what happens this year, and hopefully I can get some better chatter next to the recorder, or some really good yells or something closer to the recorder. So thanks again for watching, and I'm going to go in the house and try to warm up. I think it's like 30 degrees out here right now. But it was nice getting sunshine, and I'm rambling, so bye.